Okay, I'll call the Finance Committee at 7:01 to discuss the review of RFPs. I know that we last left off in the February 1st meeting. We had decided that we were going to have contact both OHM and MS Consulting to see if they were available to provide a 10 to 15-minute presentation. And then once that was confirmed, we would call another meeting. But I know there's been some developments or some conversations since. So I'll, we can discuss what we want to do going forward or how we want to attack this. Does anyone want to start? Maria, you can go ahead.
So, hi, everybody. So, yes, it was my idea that we should have both of those firms come and, share, and maybe even all four of them, but at least the two that we had, sort of boiled it down to. I know Monica has some strong feelings about one of them. And I think that Mr. Sakis also has strong feelings about us not associating with them, which is, fine. Certainly, I thought we should give them a chance. But I was then informed later that the mayor and Monica spoke, and they decided that we shouldn't be really entertaining anything, and we shouldn't really be talking to any of these firms. And I was told that under no uncertain circumstances would the mayor be approving any of them. So I, just sort of took a step back and decided we'd wait until this meeting to discuss what to do. I was fairly flabbergasted by the whole thing. So I just, when it comes to giving, OHM a second to state their case, as I told you all before, I spoke with both, their president as well as the mayor of Reminderville, where this whole thing, supposedly had happened. And I was actually fairly impressed about, with respect to sort of the circumstances surrounding that one case. And I don't know if any of you guys have ever done business in a construction world, but there are very often lawsuits back and forth in that arena. So, I thought we'd give them a chance, but Monica feels that they're under no uncertain circumstances should we be speaking to them. And I just, at this point, I just kind of wanted it open up to you guys. I can't even begin to describe how offended I was by our conversation, and I don't really want to continue having it. So I thought that maybe you guys could step in and have the conversation now, if you would like to. If you guys want to drop the whole thing, again, that's fine too, but apparently the mayor wants to drop the whole thing now. So just open it up to you guys.
Joe?
Okay. I don't think it was necessary. I mean, the more I sit back and think. I just feel, period, on the RFPs that we maybe, just after talking with others, Monica, should we maybe wait as far as zoning, like the zoning, kind of see how that's going to happen and get somebody in here to, what is it, a zoning diagnostic? Is that the correct way to say it? And maybe figure that out first before. I just totally feel, Maria, that if somebody comes in, they're going to tell us what we already know, to the fact of we got to tear down the old, build new, and a lot of it's private property. So I figured the zoning would probably be the way to go first, but I'm not opposed either. I mean, it's what the majority, what we all think and talk about, and what makes the most sense. So I'm not saying shut it down. I'm just.
So we were supposed to have them do the zoning. That's all part of it. So, I mean, the whole point is, the zoning changes that we would have to consider making would go hand in hand with the changes that we would consider making, as the overall plan. So again, doing the whole zoning study, what is that really going to prove if we don't know what we're trying to accomplish? What we're trying to change. So I don't understand that argument at all, but.
Well, I feel the whole referendum zoning that we're going to discuss later, I believe, has a big part in it as well. But, and as far as OHM, there was just a couple things on them where I believe the mayor of Reminderville, I believe his secretary works for OHM. So I don't know. Everything just seemed that maybe we should just try another company as far as that's concerned. But yeah, the zoning, I get what you're saying, but that does have a big part of it, because then we'll get an idea of what we want to do in the future, the referendum zoning. No, you don't. I mean, you're on mute. You're on mute.
We're just like talking about zoning. I mean, Monica is obsessed about zoning, and we're just going to change we need to change the zoning. We need to change the zoning, and we don't even know what we're trying to change the zoning to. I mean, we need to understand, what we really need if we're going to do any zoning changes. And, referendum zoning was something that we agreed to as a city for a reason. I mean, it wasn't just oh, hey, let's just have referendum zoning for fun. I mean, we have it in place because of things that had been done previously that were not beneficial for the city. So
agreed, but we also have a planning commission. I mean, there's still a process, and that was also put in place a very long time. I just think things have changed, especially after COVID with economic development. With office space, there's not going to be, and so I just feel a lot has changed since, referendum zoning was put in place.
Okay.
I mean,
this isn't my committee, so
oh.
Can I?
Randy, go ahead. Then you, Tom. Randy, go first.
When you're talking about the zoning study, is the zoning study cheaper than a full RFP? Is a zoning diagnostic a less expensive route? I know Maria said they're going to do both, but is the zoning part of that, just zoning only, is that cheaper to do? Monica, I mean, whoever can answer that.
Yes, I can. So just to give the history of why we were looking at doing an RFP initially, was that Mayor Barbish had requested a purchasing property, and multiple times he had asked about purchasing property. So there was a feel that we should have a plan rather than going about and just arbitrarily purchasing property. And that was what was initially within Matt's, and when Matt was the chair of the committee, what the focus was. And so the referendum zoning was put in place in 1976. I'm sorry, 1976 or 78.
77.
77. I knew it was, okay. Yeah. So 1977. Part of what was looked at is vacant buildings. Since that time, we had the discussion last May and June. We have had quite a bit of movement on properties that had sat vacant for a number of years. Mayor Barbish and I have met with an investor who's been purchasing property. He just contacted me today, inquiring about potentially if this city has an interest on seeing the Provo house. I've reached out to Mayor Barbish to get with Ron about, if that would be appropriate to allow him to see it, if that's something that the city wants to do. And regarding an RFP, a full-blown RFP, in part as looking at this, I have had 18 years involvement with construction. So I do have a background in construction, from road, water line, roadway, airports, 3 airports, ferry boat docks, shoreline revetment. So I've been involved in a lot of that. And I do have my reservations on as I've expressed and I have shared. Taking a look at some of the things, and I also heard looking at residential. I've heard the zoning, looking at the zoning. We are having movement. I just got within the last 15 minutes information on Pisces project, which is exciting to me. So taking a look at potentially doing a zoning diagnostics to take a look at recommendations of how to make it more agile, or if it's good, if it needs maybe tweaking somewhere, is beneficial, because overall, it might not be that the zoning's wrong. It might not be it, but we have, that is something that's very key into helping move the city forward. We are having people come in and doing it. And then we can look at spot specific. Are there areas we want to focus in? Are there areas we want to look at the whole city? Also, we were looking at if we were able to obtain a grant. The base cost to only do Euclid Avenue is $45,000. And then to do any other part of the city goes on up to $100,000. Is that something that the city feels and the council feels appropriate? You guys are the ones that make that decision, not me. I'm just sharing with you what it is to do a diagnostic, just to take a focused look at the zoning and making recommendations as to these could be areas where you'd want to focus, would be about $10,000. Is that money better spent as to taking a look at it and then moving forward and saying yes? And in that, it will be looking at areas of the city. We just aren't having somebody come in and tell us that we need to use CRAs, which the city already has in place, or maybe tax incremental financing. We know what, overall, we are pretty well versed in what the tools are. I have yet to hear of tools that potentially could be used outside of that. So that's part of the RFP. So that's something where stepping back, if you guys so choose, stepping back and doing a zoning diagnostics is a beneficial step for the city. You haven't had the zoning updated since I think it's 2006 or 2008. And that's why I see that as a benefit. This is up to you though. This is, you guys would legislate the money and then for John to consider moving forward with it. So anyways.
So Monica, did you or did you not tell me that John would absolutely never agree to move forward with it no matter what we did?
I don't believe I said that, and I apologize if you understood that.
No, that's exactly what you said to me. And
Okay,
I do want to.
I don't recall saying that he will never do it. I'm just saying he's but-
what? He's.
No, go
So
ahead.
the point is, I saw no problem. I thought it would be a benefit to bring them in. They did work. They put together the RFP. Why not let them come in and share with us what they foresee as, plausible or possible or whatever. I mean, why wouldn't we do that? Like, I don't understand that. We don't have
And I
to.
think I followed up with an email to you, Maria, that stated that I fully support whatever route you guys go. Next morning, I sent that email and said that. If you feel that you need that or want to have that, I fully support it. Whatever you guys want. I'm just sure where I'm at, but I'm not the decision maker here. You guys are the ones that decide the financial. John would sign the contract, not me. I'm only sharing with you what I know.
Sure. Okay, Tom, you go ahead, Tom.
Yeah, I like to add, I think where we're getting lost in is the fact that we are not able to change any of the zoning in our city unless we go to the voters. Am I correct with this?
Correct.
Okay, so this is where we're tripping. And if I remember, John says, or Monica had both said, now I don't exactly have it all when they said it, is every time we're entertaining new people to come in here, the stopping block or the stumbling block is our zoning issue. It could take up to 18 months. So I feel as a city council member, we need to get back to our voters, tell them that we have a zoning commission. We want to go to a zoning commission so we can change our zoning laws through them to accommodate new ideas and people coming through. I mean, we can talk to 1,000 people and they can give us 1,000 ideas and we can try to promote something, but if we can't change zoning laws, okay, because there's properties that butt up against, which is commercial and residential. I think we came across that with Sweet Berries on 300th Street. Well, we did it right. They were very patient. We were very blessed that they hung out. But I think before we get going anywhere through this, we have to get rid of this, at least go to our voters and explain to us. And that's why we're losing out to other cities. So, and I think once we address that, then we can address in meeting with people and getting ourselves in the right step. Okay. Because I know John and Monica say this is very frustrating when they get involved in any kind of discussion with a builder or planner or developer. I think that's what I remember, and that's where we're at. Now, I was getting mad at each other, and he said, they said, it's still, we have this one major problem, and I really think we need to address it in that perspective. And we were supposed to, when I thought we were going to have this meeting, that these two people or two groups were going to bring on and give us a display tonight. So that's how I felt with the meeting.
I did.
That's all I have to add right now.
Okay, Sherry, you got something?
Well, I don't know. I don't even know if I remember what I was going to say at this point, but aren't we able to do some referendums? I mean, are we able to do some zoning on our own? No. Well, there's a reason why it goes to the voters, though. That's to make sure that it's something that everybody wants and it's not some big pressure thing. And all of a sudden I've got a convenience store next door to me on the, crummy lot that's next to me. I mean, it's there to protect the residents from.
Yeah, and I agree, but we're talking about zoning, like last two comments about zoning. Let's talk about the RFPs on this meeting. We'll talk about referendum zoning on the next meeting.
Okay.
So we need to focus on the review of RFPs. Do we want to meet with these groups? Do we want them to present to us, or do we want to just discard it and say, you know what, we're just going to do the zoning diagnostics? I think that's the point we're at right now. We'll talk about referendum zoning and the next meeting, but by the RFPs, we need to focus on what we want to do. Do we want to keep pursuing this and interview those two companies, or do we want to just drop it and then see if we can do one of them can do zoning diagnostics, or somebody can do zoning diagnostics for us? Go ahead, Sherry.
Well, I was just gonna say, has everyone seen what we had gotten in the past? When we had people recommend what to do with Euclid Avenue? Has everyone seen the past plans? Does Pete still have that? I want to ask you a question while you're drinking. Do you have the former plans that we had gotten for Euclid Avenue years ago that people made all these grand recommendations?
Oh, yeah.
Could you give that to everyone?
Sure, I could do that again.
Like, make it good just so they can see what we had gotten in the past.
Sure.
Now, what has come about since then, or what hasn't, and what they think might be different if we spent money to have someone tell us the same thing.
Sure. I'll make copies of, I already scanned them and they're on my computer. I can
Oh, okay,
be in the next 10 minutes probably.
okay. You can keep drinking. All right, that's it for me.
I'm not opposed to Maria having people come in and talk whatsoever. But I mean, at the end of the day, is John gonna shut it down? I mean, that's the thing.
I don't know. I don't know. I don't know. I mean, he's chosen not to attend this meeting, so there's a chance that he may just say, listen, I'm not following through with it. So are we wasting time, their time, our time? I'm not sure.
That's
They wasted
so.
time putting together the RFPs, okay? They wasted their time putting that together. Giving them, 15 minutes to describe why they put their particular RFP together, I don't think is a waste of their time. I think it's actually, I think it's foolish for us not to at least look at that opportunity. I mean, why wouldn't we? I don't really understand it. And if they say something that is really wows us, whether we hire them or not, it'll give us some food for thought anyway.
I agree.
Okay. Then we can pursue, if there's no objections, we can ask them to meet on the 15th, if that's what you guys want to do as a committee, and say, okay, let's listen to them. Do give 10 to 15-minute presentations on the 15th.
Right, and if John shuts them down afterwards, then, maybe the voters should understand that. I mean, I don't know what to say about that. I mean,
Okay.
yeah.
All right. Does anybody have any objections to someone reaching out to them to see if they want to give a 10 to 15-minute presentation on the 15th?
No.
Okay. Then that's what we'll have, and we'll leave this item in committee and end this meeting at 7:22. Okay. Call to order the committee of the whole to discuss referendum zoning. Okay, this is in the charter, section 11-3 is mandatory zoning referendum. And it states that any ordinance or resolution or legislation which affects a change in the existing zoning classification or district of any property, or which changes the use permitted in any zoning classification or district, or which otherwise provides for a change in the use of any property within the city, shall not go into effect until approved by the majority of those electors of the city of Wickliffe, voting upon it at the next succeeding general election, primary election, or special election occurrence more than 60 passes of such ordinance, resolution, or legislation. It also says that no action of the council which authorizes a change can be done on emergency reading. So I think that both the Charter Review Commission, the majority of them, and obviously our mayor has pushed for us to modify this. And I know that other committee members have expressed, the reason behind it, which is true. But then again, this was passed in November of 1977. And it's been, we're going on 33 and a half years, and things have changed. There's not a lot of room for growth in the city as far as open land or anything that can be changed, any new construction. A lot of it would be modifying what's already currently there. So that's my, people say, well, I don't want this next to me, but most likely if you're already living next to a commercial area, it's just how it's zoned. It may be something different, but it's still going to be commercial. Or we change it to residential if that's the way we want to do it. But I think that we need to just modify this so that it goes to the planning commission first. And then if it passes by the majority of the planning commission, then we can go on to an ordinance. And then at least that the residents would have 4 different open
Right.
meetings to discuss and their concerns and their questions before it's passed by council. But if others have objection, if we're not going to pass this, we tried twice in 2018 and 2019, and it was voted down by the council, because I believe it needs 5 out of the 7 to approve it to be read on the charter.
I feel it should go to the ballot for the residents to decide. 'Cause that's all it's going to be. And and let them decide, should we keep it or should we do it how you explain?
I agree. I mean, if we keep it, we keep it. It's fine by me, but it should be up to the voters to decide. It's been almost 35 years. I really think that they may see this as a benefit to allow more industry to come in, because that's the biggest complaint we get a lot is Euclid Avenue. But if we can't get businesses to come in Euclid Avenue because of our zoning, then we need to look at our zoning and change that.
I agree.
I do too.
I
Let
do
the
too.
voters decide. They may not decide that way, but at least we should put it out there. I mean, if they say no, they say no, but we should at least give them the option.
Right. Then they have spoken. Right.
Yeah. So I don't know, Maria or Sherry, do you have any objections to at least or recommending it to the council to at least have an ordinance put out there till we can vote on after 3 readings to see if we want to put it out to the voters?
I thought you just said you were gonna have,
I said, if we do this, I mean, I want the committee to, understand that all we're doing here would be recommending it to the council to create an ordinance, have a law director create an ordinance to put it on the ballot. I'm just wanting to get your opinion of whether you have an objection to that or.
I thought you said you were gonna have, who was it? Brain's gone. The zoning commission look at it or whatever first.
We would. So when we talked to the planning commission back in, I don't know, 2019, I believe, April 2019, we talked with, if you remember, we talked with Pat McGraw and Steve Bittens, and they confirmed that, they were on board and it was within their bandwidth to help out and do that, they can help decide the master plan of the city, and they could also, along with any kind of, zoning changes we make, that the planning commission should be the ones that start the process and get the confirmation. We want the residents to decide first before it comes to council.
Right. So it'd be after the vote, Sherry. So then that would be what happens if the people decide to get rid of referendum zoning, right? Then there would still be a process, which would be those things. Okay.
Yeah, so I would think that the person would come in and apply or talk to the city about a certain property and find out that it's not zoned the way they want it to. They would have to go to an open meeting with the planning commission and then have that meeting, which is still, I believe, like a 30-day process. And then after the planning commission approves it, then it would come to council via an ordinance to be read 3 times. Because I wouldn't change that part of the ordinance where we can do anything by emergency. I would keep that part in the charter. I would just modify the words. It says, instead of saying shall not go into effect until approved by a majority of those electors, I would say shall not go into effect unless and then the city council, and then leave in the part where it says it has to be read 3 times. It can't be done on an emergency basis. Monica?
Thank you. Just to let you know, today, if a property owner wants to change their zoning, actually it does not go to planning and it does not come to council. The way they put the process through in the city and the city's charter is that it would go direct, they would get signatures onto a ballot or onto a petition for to go on the ballot and then go directly to ballot. Therefore, it's never put through your planning commission nor through city council if it's initiated by the property owner themselves. If it is not, then it does. If it's either through planning or through council, then it goes through the process if they're the ones initiating it. Secondly, I would also recommend, I believe that planning part of the recommendation would be that instituting public hearings both at the planning commission level and also at the city council level. If the city does decide to, and it's authorized through a new process. And so you would have an application come to planning, public hearing, vote, and then it would come over to council, who would have a reading, public hearing, second reading, third reading, and then do the vote. And then that way, and then some of the recommendations could be that you would, to overturn a recommendation of planning commission, have a super majority rather than a simple majority of council authorizing it. So that's a way to, that if council decides to go contrary to the recommendations of planning, that it would take a super majority to do so. So those are some things that some of the other cities, I think East Lake, I believe, uses that process. Willoughby is slightly different, but similar processes.
Okay. I think Scott wanted to say something. Scott.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Council President. If council did want to move forward with this, and it's basically everything we discussed, you're right, it has come to reading to council twice before. So the proposed charter change is already in place. The legislation is in place. We had just reintroduced it.
Does it explain or what the process would be though?
There would already be a process absent it going to the voters in our planning commission section of the code. Basically, it does have to go through planning commission. It could be initiated. There's a process for that, and also through council. Council can initiate it. So it would just take out the requirement of going to the voters. Would be what would be, eliminated from it.
Yeah, I just
Again, and if I think it'd be a two-step process here. Like you said, what you're proposing tonight, and maybe to clarify for Councilperson Koski, this is not to make any zoning changes. This is just whether to put the decision for zoning changes in the hands of the city or in the hands of the voters. We currently have any zoning changes in the hands of the voters, whether it's initiated by a private party, whether it's initiated by council, or whether it's initiated by the planning commission. It would just eliminate the requirement of going to the voters to be approved. If council went forward with this and the voters decided to do away with that, like I said, our ordinance is already set up in such a way that we already have that process in place. But if council wasn't comfortable with that process, once it passed, they could all modify our ordinances, if they want to make changes like Monica suggested. They wanted to put measures in there that aren't currently in our ordinances. That could also be done by legislation at that point.
Just a quick question though, Scott. When we do if let's just say we do put an ordinance out and we pass it to the voters, go out November, is there a way that's going to be specifically written on the ballot that it's very clear and concise and it's very understandable that how
it's the proposed, yeah, we've had that put before council before, all the wording, which is what
okay, and that wording,
I don't have that resolution in front of me right now.
okay,
but I could, if council wants to proceed with this, obviously we could, before council votes on putting that, I can send draft, copies of it again to council. What was proposed before, and they can review it. If there's concerns, it could be modified.
okay, Randy.
This question's for Mr. Zealy. Scott, what our present way we do it, what is like the versus the time if we change the ordinance and go to get rid of referendum zoning? What would you say the time difference would be for somebody that has to do referendum zoning versus if we change it and we go to the planning commission? Like, is it 3 months if we change it up to 18 months if we leave it alone?
Right. That question, I guess, really depends on the particular situation. If someone does it shortly, say, gets it done in July, maybe, under our current, probably the quickest it could be done for a general election if it was time is, let's see here, to like July, August. Like 4 months is about the quickest it could be done. But if it was someone wanted to do this in January and had to wait till, November, that obviously extends it. It's a matter of timing. Then again, to look at both sides of it, any, I'd say, huge economic company coming in, they have the means that they could put this up for a special election, which would be about the same amount of time that it would be, the same amount of time if the 4 months, like the shortest period on ours. They could always call for ask for a special election and pay for that and have it done. So it could be about that, minimum amount of time. Could this maybe save a couple months for some situations if we didn't have the referendum zoning? Potentially. Where it's really going to benefit, I see more for the small business owner that can't afford to do a special election, something like that. Timing, a lot of this is timing, and money is really what stretches out the period. But I mean, worst case scenario, it would be an 11-month process. I'm not sure where 18 months comes from under our
Oh, I'm
current
sorry.
zoning. No, I heard someone mention that it could take up to 18 months under our current. I don't know where that comes from.
That's where I got it from, Scott. Sorry.
Oh, I'm sorry. Yeah.
Thank you.
Mhm.
Scott, that came from when the process would start. So if you didn't hit it in timing and they could not afford to do a special election, which I think costs about 12 grand, then it would take it to a general election, which is November. So let's say they missed that time period. Let's say they had to get it on the ballot and they start the process in, let's say, June. They missed the deadline, then you got another year, and that's where that time frame came from. And
Correct.
I think
Around middle of July to get on a November ballot. So if it's anything at the end of July, you're talking waiting until the following November. So you're talking 16 months right there.
yeah. And then also I figured on average, just looking at as quick as somebody could process through, I think it was either 3 or 4 months. 4 months probably to 4 to 8 months, something like that. Or maybe it was 3 to 7 compared to, let's say 4 to 17 months, something along those lines in our current process.
Okay, anybody else have any other opinions, questions, concerns? Does anybody have any objection to the committee authorizing the law director to resubmit? You know what, honestly, I think it might be best if we just leave this a committee for till the 15th, and if you could send out that resolution so we can review it and see if there's any modifications, we can discuss it in the meeting on the 15th. Let's call it again, and if nobody has any objections, we'll just, as a committee, we can say go ahead with it or not. But let's look at exactly how we want to phrase that, Scott, if you can, and see if there's any changes that anybody wants to make before we go forward. We still have time.
Yeah, I can just send that out to everybody, to all the council members again, of what went to council the last 2 times, and tweak it from there.
Okay. All right. Right. Then we'll leave that in the committee and we'll call this meeting at 7:38.
Call the meeting to the Parks and Property meeting at 7:39 to discuss the Talmadge Gardens or community gardens, either at Talmadge or at the community center. I sent everybody an email over the weekend. I don't know if everybody got it and read it. I just wondered your thoughts on that. About versus putting them at Talmadge. Or go ahead, Maria. I'm sorry.
No, I think I answered your email too. It was really a very thoughtful look at sort of the difference between the 2 locations that we're thinking of. And I think you made some really valid points. I think that there are a lot of good reasons to think about putting it at Talmadge, mainly because it kind of gets it out of the way, from traffic, et cetera, at the community center. And I think it just made a lot of sense, especially if you're going to be able to have some parking there, because that was the one thing that didn't seem quite right. But if we can, lay a little bit of parking area for people to park their cars there, then I think that might be a better location. It's just sort of my take on it.
Yeah, I agree. Oh,
Randy, who's
Tom.
talking? Yeah, I called both Ron and I called Tim Stop, and talked with him about it. And I think Ron suggested that it is better for him, make it more accommodated for the people that food, and that it wouldn't hinder the park from growers going in there on a special event. And it would just be all about, in my eyes, and Tim felt the same way, and both Ron, that doing it there off Talmadge there on Robert, that's like the extension of Trump. I think that really work out better and definitely can grow there. I recommend that. That's all I got.
Joe?
Yeah, I agree. I also think Talmadge Gardens, it's a little bit off the beaten path, so not as much traffic. Just think it's a great area. It's unused space. And, I believe they'll be able to make parking when that time comes. They'll make it happen. My question is, though, Ed, I don't know if you're on this committee, but my question is, and maybe you can answer this, if the majority of council agrees and says, yes, it should be, or the majority of this committee says, yes, we agree, it should be at Talmadge Gardens or over there. Does it matter does the mayor have the ultimate say at the end of the day?
He probably does. I don't know if this is considered a day-to-day operation or not. But I believe it's cheaper and better to stay at Talmadge. I mean, the water's already there. There's no fencing needed. It would, the actual tilling or anything like that wouldn't cause any issues and wouldn't cause more time and effort for the service department if it stayed at Talmadge. So economically and financially, it's better to put it at Talmadge. So I would hope he would listen to our recommendation. I would hope that he would, if that's the way we go, and that, he would follow through with it.
Okay, yeah, just because I feel the majority, after talking with Sarah, talked with Tom about it, Randy about it, you about it, and I believe Maria as well agrees. So yeah, I think it's great. Randy, good research on that as well.
Well, Joe and I, we went over there and tried to be reasonable, optimistic on both sites. You and I, we went to the community center and then we went to Talmadge. It just seems a better fit at Talmadge. With the cost of not having to put up a fence. Director Strauser already pointed out that the water line basically there just needs a water meter, and the water spigots are already up there. I was there yesterday and checked. So that wouldn't take very much for us, the cost of us to get that up and running.
Well, Councilman Bogo said it best when he said, if there's an event at the community center, that'll crush the parking for anybody that wants to go to the gardens. So that was a thought I thought of as, that was a good thinking on that one. So.
Yeah. And they have a couple baseball tournaments a year. And there's when we get back to the car shows and everything else that they do at that senior center, the concerts in the park as well, or all that. Yes. It would make it way more difficult, but I agree.
Ron, go ahead.
Yeah, I just wanted to just say, I've talked with a few of the councilmen and stuff, and I think for years we had the gardens over there off of Lloyd Road, and when we first put them in, when we first rototill them up, the ground looks all nice. We stake it all out, everything looks nice. Guys come plant their stuff, everything still looks nice. After about a month, the weeds take over. Some people take very, very good care of their gardens, and some people don't. We actually had the hay bale gardens in the back. The lady was all gung ho about it, and it seemed like a good idea and everything. And then to me, it just got overrun. There was stuff sitting all over the place. There was hoses that people didn't wind up and stuff like that. And I just think that the Talmadge Gardens is a better place for that. I mean, especially with the wall along the freeway, nobody's going to see it. The only place really is going to see it are the people who have the backyards on Roberts, you know. So that's my reasoning for that. But I do want you guys to know that, you know, we planned for the gardens to be there. That's been, I would say, at least 20 years. There is a water line that runs there. But I mean, there's a good chance it's going to need, you know, it's going to need some work. I just want you to know that it's not going to be like click my fingers and make the gardens happen there this year, you know? So we could, it may go better than expected, but you know, it hasn't been tilled up in years. Nothing's been done there for years, except for brush hogging there down there. So I just wanted to make you aware that, you know, we'll do our best. Certainly if you guys decide to put them there, we'll do our best to get them in there. And the same thing goes with if we decide to put them over by the senior center, the community center, you know, you don't even have water there. I mean, you're gonna have to dig your trench lines and you're gonna run it from the building or, you know, run something from the street and put a meter pit in and all that kind of stuff. If you wanted to do that, gardens probably wouldn't even happen this year. I know the mayor talked about putting a fence around it, to have it, you know, where it was all inside of a fence. This way it would keep the deer out and all that kind of stuff. There's some good arguments there to be made for sure. But there's some negatives to that also, because if you put a fence around it and stuff, it's a lot harder for me to get my tractor in there and rototill it and stuff like that. There'd be a lot more hand tilling and things like that. I just think it'd be a lot more maintenance. You'd have to weed eat it around the outside of the fence, the inside of the fence, all that kind of stuff. So I just think that there would be some extra maintenance involved if we did do that. And I'm just trying to throw the options out there for you guys. It doesn't matter to me which way we go. So, but I personally believe it would be easier for us to get the Talmadge Gardens ready. And that's it.
Is anybody opposed to them being at Talmadge? Okay. Then I'll make the make the recommendations that we move it to Talmadge. Are we going to call them the community gardens? Or are we going to call it the Talmadge Gardens? Does anybody have a preference?
Is it Ray Sack Senior? I mean, I don't know how, you know, but
I don't think we should change the name.
no, because it's you know, didn't his dad start the gardens? That's why the name, I
I would
believe.
just I would keep the same name and just move the location. That's all.
Yeah, same name.
Okay. Well, then we'll make the recommendations that we do the community gardens at the Talmadge Gardens. And we'll adjourn the meeting as soon as I find out what time it is.
7:46. All right. Thanks, guys. See you next Monday.
Okey doke.